rather than just come for the 3 days that we run for these events. And as it says there, the project funding won't last forever. I believe the next APAN event's in Sri Lanka. You guys are running the next one. So Depthy will be running the show for us and her friends. So it'd be great to see this many people or even more people attend at the next one. And again, it's about learning, sharing, and collaborating. Leadership. Be the leader in federated identity for your education research sector in your nation. Eventually, we're just finding this in the last few years, that your researchers will demand that their services be connected to the National Federation. So we've got a service in Australia which is run by a government called DataPlace. It's a data exchange service. It's run by the federal government, and they wanted to make it available to researchers in the Australian university and research sector. And they were told quite specifically by the researchers that they wanted AAF Identity Federation authentication to that service. So they came to us and said, set it up for us, because it's our researchers are demanding it. They don't want to use their MyGov account, which is the Australian government account. They haven't got access to the other options. There's actually 3 options to log into this stuff. So they demanded it, and they got it because there was enough of them there to say that that's what they wanted, and that's what they got. Okay. And other services are coming along where federated access is an essential part of it. Trust and Identity project is all about putting more federated services from Australia into the Federation and letting researchers access these services that way. Okay, we're good. New opportunities will present themselves as you begin to understand the needs of your customers. So again, talking to your customers, listening to your customers, you'll start to understand their needs and requirements. And engage with your governments. This is a slow burn. It's lots of efforts required to engage with the government because they're a slow-moving beast, and they change quite frequently in some places. So once you've spent 3 years talking to the government people, whole government changes, you've got to start again. It's a painful process, but for us, it's been very beneficial. We've actually got some good funding opportunities from them. Innovation, as you grow your opportunities and opportunities for innovation will reveal themselves. And that's happened in the AAF with our Trusted Identity project. And we're using the ARC Blueprint architecture. That little diagram up there is about the ARC Blueprint architecture. There's a whole website on this stuff. And it allows you to do much more than just authentication for researchers into services. One of the innovative things we did a few years ago was build this thing called AAF Verified. It's a simple service that just provides an easy way to verify the customer status or the user's status as a staff member or a student or other, just uses EduPerson affiliation. Does it in a privacy-preserving way, and it also provides AAF with some additional income. So we charge for every authentication attempt. I think it's about 25 cents per authentication that the company or user makes against this thing. We charge the company that wants that verification. And that comes into our pocket, and we can then spend that however we choose. It's a fairly good income stream. It's pretty much set and forget, and it's been running for a number of years now. And we've actually got the UK Federation using it, and happy to talk to you about your federation if you want to go down that path. I think we have had chats with the Malaysian Federation in the past. Our other thing is the Trust and Identity program. It's a key enabler for integration national digital research infrastructure ecosystems. So based on the ARC Blueprint, much work's been done, and just need to apply it to your research needs. So there's a lot of effort to get to this point, but we're we're starting to roll this stuff out. And AAF next week, we'll be meeting with Amazon Web Services to develop some integration documentation. So we have a number of researchers who want to put their services into AWS. They want to use the AWS authentication stuff, but they also want that to then leap out and use AAF. So we're meeting directly with the AWS development team and working out how to actually do that. And then they will document it and put it on their website about how to connect your AWS service to the Federation, and away you go. Yeah. So on the verified thing, yep.
Verify whether he's a student or not, but in a privacy preserving way, up to which level you're going to preserve the privacy.
So when a user goes to some service like which one? It's one of the big.
Sometimes they have like.
Yeah, Spotify is one that we use. So Share ID sits underneath that. So Share ID provides a service to Spotify. They hit to Spotify, they're asked to verify that they're a student. They hit verified, which sends them off to the Federation to log in. They log in and verified sends back their affiliation and a token that just is unique for that user, but has no more identifying information, just a token. So if they come back a second time, they get the same token, but they still won't know who that user is.
Some of the commerce in Indonesia, we have like a discussions a year. Usually what happens in Indonesia, they will ask a lot of things. It's very common in Indonesia because the sense of privacy is somewhat different.
Non-existent?
Yeah, you can say something like that, right? So whenever we can't really reply them, we just simply, okay, you are a staff, you are a student, but they always ask names, they always ask email, they always ask anything that they can get for their marketing purposes, so they will definitely ask it.
Yeah.
So that is something that is a bit difficult for us, okay, actually they're offering, okay, if you are a student, you can get more discount. So these e-commerce things is like Amazon, but in Indonesia it's quite equal.
Yeah.
They will always ask something like that. So it's something that
But they can also ask.
By the end of the day, we have to reject request. So,
but they can ask for that information after they got the verification. You're a student, now give me your email address, your other personal details. But
sometimes they have the agreement with the universities. So they create like an MOU with the universities. As long as you are the students from this university, yes, you can get some discount or something like that. But yeah, they all just like it's basic, but not open for federation, right? Yeah, I mean, like they always ask me more. That's the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if the person is free to give, it's fine. I mean, it becomes.
I know, but in Shibboleth is simply if you don't take that one and then you just decline, then that's it. You can't really get the service.
it's not true consent, really.
Yeah. Something that one thing about Shibboleth, for example, you can't really pick which one actually that you will provide them, right?
You can.
It's really up to us, to decide that. But there is no tick. I want to, say for example, on the first screen after you log in.
Yeah, I think I saw which federation that you can. I mean, okay, I just want to release this and this. Of course, after that, the certificate cannot be delivered.
Yep. So there is an option in Shibboleth where you can turn on that stuff. The user interface is pretty ordinary, but I think Ken Klinkenstein and his friends have worked on another plugin to Shibboleth, which allows you to have a more user-friendly experience in releasing the attributes that you want. Huh? So,
but we do the same in Europe with verify ID, but by academic ID. Well, no, not academic. In academia.
yeah.
The reason why we do that, just say to the organization they are a student or they are in at this university, is that it's not up to us to give all the data for the user they need to supply to no service, because that is personal information that is around customer relationship. And we are not included in the customer relationships, we are just verifying that it's a unit.
So the service itself can ask for whatever it likes beyond or after it's done the verification. The only other option you've got is actually to put them in the federation as a proper service and release the attributes, which gets met. We actually threw out a whole bunch of stuff and pushed them to Verified because we didn't want that. We wanted that privacy preserving for the students, for the staff.
Period, the traffic is like 20 times more than usual. So I tried to find out why this sudden peak about 20 service. Apparently that week is like the last week that if you buy Apple product, Mac, you will get AirPod for free. For a student and also, I mean, basically for member of university or education institution. So that's quite interesting. Suddenly peak 20 times higher than normal for 2 weeks straight.
So it's amazing what information people will give away to get a free iPod or a free T-shirt or a cheap pizza or something.
How do you put it yourself in another service like Share ID? Because
Share ID use our service.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're one of our customers. So they were part of our federation earlier, and we told them, no, you've got to go out and you either disappear or use Verified.
I mean, because the way the Share ID working in BGS specifically, I don't know how they do the things. It's just they just grab the .ac.id as the academic domain.
But they've got a raft of different ways. They'll try your email address and verify it that way. That's not 100% guaranteed.
It's actually, I mean, like even if you are staff, you can actually sign up as a student for Spotify at the time.
Yep. So they prefer as good a verification as possible. So that's why they prefer our solution, but they will have, they got a lot of institutions like all our.
They come to you or you ask you often?
We talked to them. They were our first customer, and we said, well, how can we work out a way to do this for you where we make some money, because they got truckloads of money and they're not worried about giving it away. Because to do a manual verification with all the paperwork, it's at least $5 per go. But to have all those things sent in and check them out, and it takes a long time. With our solution, it's 25 cents a go and it's done instantaneously.
If your institution is not listed, it's not part of the national definition, then your university has to need to apply the Share ID to be included. Really much more works than compared with those who already filed.
Yep. So they're trying to minimize the amount of effort they do. So this is one solution that works for them. They've also signed up for the research in academia as well.
They don't love us, but they tolerate us because we make money.
Yeah.
And the way we do verify in academia is a good way to see get quality data. They get this is you or this is an employee. They don't get this is a person that has a mail address in this organization. And they're trying to do a really bad thing a year or 2 years ago.
Yep.
Scraping the login pages.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a really, we had a long discussion with them. And they tried to get lawyers on us, and we said, okay, you can get lawyers on us, and we will get the European Commission on them.
Yeah.
And they went silent.
So they are hitting the login.
What they did was that they scraped them, yeah. Or they just put the login. They asked the user to use username password and put it into your login page and check if they got an okay back. That's the only thing they did.
Oh.
Yeah, and because AF, the European federations and the Americans went berserk.
Yep, they're going to slap across the wrist for that one.
They are as powerful together.
Yep.
And I wish that everybody would do that and understand this potential of us giving discount to students and everything. Which is actually good.
We found another service do the same thing last autumn. I talking to them, made them do the correct thing. So it's about doing stuff together.
We found another service that's similar to Share ID. It's also part of Verified that was using Azure. And they would have an application that they would get the student to install on Azure. And most of the Azure setups by default will allow any application to be installed. And then that application would ask the student to log in, and then they got their verification. So we had a big campaign around Australia to say, hey, go and fix your Azure so that by default, only the admins can add new applications to Azure and not anybody. And that slowed them down a bit. But they try every which way to get in, to get your verification information or your student as cheaply as possible. That's a challenge.
Graduates is no longer a student.
So they'll become, the value of their affiliation will either change to alumni, or they won't be able to log in because the university's closed their account.
Depends on the university policy whether.
Yeah.
And then the entitlement, I think, may change.
It should change pretty much straight away.
Yes, so far. Transition from student to alumni yet. So usually when on the day they graduated with vocation, finish, then the account is settled. Does it?
Yeah, it depends university to university.
It depends on policy, but at the moment that was the practice.
But that's something you can influence. So once you start to get universities providing those values, if they're providing them in the way that you're not happy with, have the conversation with them so you understand their policies. Talk to them, and they might say, oh, didn't realize that has an impact on service delivery in the Federation. And they might change their policy, they might change the way they do stuff, they might improve the way they handle students leaving the university.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
have you developed an API for the customers, for your customers?
Yep, it's a very simple API. It's based on OIDC, I think. They just have a go and authenticate and get the information back. And then we can define what information, if they only want student list, they'll only get student list. If they want student or staff or other, then we can turn that on or off based on what their requirements are.
That's how you control the privacy.
Well,
What
we-
information you want.
We only give them the value, what type of student, what type of affiliation they have, and a token, a hash of the student identifier. We don't give them an email address, we don't give them a name, we don't give them any other information. So that's where the privacy comes in. And if they want that information, then they have to go and ask the student themselves. The service has to ask. And they'll generally need that information because if you want to buy something online, you'll need an email address, you'll need a home address, you'll need all that sort of stuff. But the service can deal with that. And the service will have its own privacy policy about how they handle the storage of and management of those credentials and information. That takes more of the risk of the Federation too, because we're not providing that information. So we're not at risk of that information flying off to somewhere else. So if that service was, say, selling that information to some third party, we didn't give them that information. They collected that themselves. They're at risk. It's their problem because they're selling that information on to some other person. So that's your risk assessment type stuff. We went through all of this when we set up this service. What's the risk? What could possibly come back and bite us at the end of the day was setting up this service. And there wasn't much. Once we set it up, the thing that came back was lots of money, which is good.
So verified is equal to kind of share ID and my unit days kind of thing, right? So you will have a tie up with some various service providers and you will get some kind of discount for educational community, isn't it? What is the purpose of verified in future?
It takes them out of the federation and gives them a specific API to talk to,
Okay,
which gives them specific information about the user,
okay,
which is privacy.
understand.
preserving, and we can then use that to count how many authentications have successfully occurred. So we
Okay.
can then build
For anywhere, any country identity provider, for example, one of the member institution from INFED want to be a part of verified, that you will connect through federation or directly you will have a connection with.
We've set up something for the UK Federation,
Okay,
so they've got their own version of Verified.
okay,
Typically for the UK. We've spoken to the Malaysians, haven't done anything yet, but
The match is not there yet, but we're very close.
Yeah.
Hopefully by this year.
we're also going to have the customers at the other end, Share ID and others, wanting to use that service to access your students in your country, provide them discounts.
okay,
So it doesn't work everywhere, so some places will have a good federation, but they won't be able to sell stuff like Spotify or other discounts in a particular marketplace. So it depends.
great.
I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time about this stuff. Approved outcomes for your national research or nation's research. Need to regularly remind yourself and everyone of the big picture. It's always in front of mind for our leadership team. So we're always talking about how we're actually improving research and other stuff for our country, for Australia. We ensure that our staff are aware of the big picture. We have regular all team meetings. So we grab all our staff, we actually fly them in from all around Australia at least twice a year and have an all staff meeting and a bit of fun. And at those meetings, we have updates and our CEO just goes through what the big picture is and where we're going with the federation. We'd like to let our customers know on a regular basis, whenever we meet them, conferences, at catch-ups, and on our website. We're continually updating our website to say, this is where we're going, these are our initiatives, these are our activities that we're doing. But we also keep the history there, so we've got all the old stuff as well, so they can see. We used to do that, we still do that, plus we're now doing this, plus we're doing that. That's always growing. You know when you're on the right track when researchers demand access through your National Identity Federation. And we've seen that in the past few years that researchers have demanded and have got services to connect to the AF because it's the easiest way for researchers to connect to services. It just works. It takes time to get to that point. Any questions? Because that's the end of the first session. Well, so that's the basics. These are the things you need to do. Well,
Yeah, I have one comment that you always need to have a killer application to get the federation into your university finding your application. In some countries, it's been research. Some countries, it's been libraries. Some countries like mine, it's been student applications. We had the first application for our big application was Adobe Connect. Nowadays, we are the same as Zoom. So that was the first big one that put all universities in. So you need to find that one. You need to find the thing that everyone's going to use and make that federated. Yeah, you are who in a federation way.
yeah, I'm trying to change that and make the federation the killer application. Yeah. Yeah, I understand, but
Yeah.
you need to make the CIOs understand that the application they're after might not be there today, but down the track, your researchers might love you for doing it because the application they're after appears magically through EduGain or whatever. Or just a publisher is there waiting for the libraries to use it. And I think, Sri Lanka, you did Zoom as well for one of your key services. I'm not sure, I think Bangladesh did something or was trying to do something similar, trying to find that killer app.
A few questions about your slides on monitoring. Like, as you have already said that when any service outage is very embarrassing As you have known that we have already set up all of our EduRoam, EduGain Federation. So now actually we would like to add any monitoring tools regarding Federation as well as EduRoam also. So my first question is, as you have said that Nagios is capable to monitor Federation, but so far I know Nagios can only ping to the servers or can ensure only reachability. But how can you ensure that the function of Federation functionality is working perfectly? How can you ensure? This is my first question. And the second question is about EduRoam monitoring, because I have already developed a tools, a site basically using EPOL test, and I have implemented a separate radius server, and from that radius servers, EPOL test is being run after 5 minutes interval. So that's how we are monitoring our EduRoam. But my question is that, is there any open source or paid tools about EduRoam to monitor all our IDP and SP perfectly? So this is my two questions actually.
Okay, probably not and probably no. We use an open source thing that basically does what you say, it does the ping. And if the thing responds or it actually checks the certificate's still valid. So it's actually not checking the service is running, it's just checking it's there and there's something responding. That's something I need to work on with my technical team, is to go deeper into the IDPs and say, is it actually responding correctly? Is the service running properly? And that's much more difficult because you really need to go through a whole login cycle, or you need to know what's to expect when you hit a particular endpoint. With regards to EduRoam, I have absolutely no idea, so I'm going to throw that to Farhan, but I'm going to let Pal have a go at this one first.
Okay, there is the editing side as the you can read see what evidence including what those US look at. For IDPs, there is an instance that does go down deeper into and check if like the case. Yeah, instance, yes. If you're going to the editing side, go to tools and this database, and you look up the one where the IDPs, you will see it. It needs to be tag on that line, and that will do their tests they do for all IDPs.
Yep. And other federations have done better jobs than we have on how to actually monitor IDPs and so forth. Who was it I was talking to? The French Federation, I think, have some really good tools for actually going down from their resource registry thing to actually check all the endpoints are running and operating properly. But that's something I myself need to learn and understand and improve what we do in the AAF, because our monitoring is very superficial. It just says, are you there? Yep, that's good enough. It's not really good enough. It needs to be much more thorough.
Without implementing perfect monitoring tools, it's very difficult to manage our because we're almost near to implement one of our very fast IDP with, as a member. So
yep.
It's really important for us to implement monitoring tools,
yep.
because without ensuring our service, they need embarrassing
yep.
towards our customers.
Most of the time, the IDPs run fairly seamlessly. They run fairly well. We've found that a tractor that digs up a network cable is the biggest cause of issues. So a tractor will dig up the fiber into the university, will shut down the whole university, and their IDP will go offline. We've had that happen more times than we've had IDPs crash. So, and we can't do anything, and our monitoring actually picks those up because they can't hit the servers. Yep. You can't actually have Nagios put an agent on.
IDP request for
specific does application level check.
Yeah, you can actually run an agent on the server itself, which can check to see if various services are running. So you can check to see if the IDP program is running, the database that sits behind it's running. There's some tools on the Shibboleth IDP which you can run to see if it's running. So we can talk about that later offline. Do you want to talk about Eduroam monitoring or do you not? Nope. Okay.
I think for login, you can use J or something like that. For testing purpose. Use that. No, I mean for the federations, you asked about the testing for federations, right? For the Eduroam, we use the Apple test as well, and we just put the report on our Telegram. So we use Telegram usually to monitor the state of the Eduroam services that we have. But for the identity federations, for the login page, we use actually JMeter something like that to test the services running on the web. Usually JMeter is usually just configured to test the capacity of the login, so we can push like 1,000 login at the same time to the login page, whether it's stems from the kind of so-called attack from the real client. We'll use the JMeter things.
Terry, what is the prospect of cloud storage and backup as killer application?
Where's Tim gone? He was here earlier. So we got the guy from Brisbane who's the developer on File Sender.
There is kind of different.
Yep.
I was thinking about the cloud storage or the backup service.
Yep.
Laptop backup.
Right. Nothing, no idea what's happening with laptop backup. That's, I'm not sure how that would work in the federation space.
Using one cloud or next.
Yep. I know that ARNet are actually shutting down their cloud store service at the end of the year. You probably heard that. Yep. It's the reason is it's too expensive for them to run. Costs them over $1 million a year to run that service in Australia. So they've decided to shut that down. There is a discussion forum at the moment. I'll see if I can get you onto that discussion forum about what options they're looking at. So they're looking at things from Azure, Office, what do they call it? I'm not sure about what there's some Office thing that allows you to share files. No, it's gone. There is a discussion topic in Australia about what to do with the replacement for Cloud Store. They're looking at AWS as an option, Nectar's an option. So Nectar's going to probably take on the role of running their Swan service, which is their their Jupyter notebooks. So the Jupyter notebooks will move out of ARNet to Nectar. Beyond that, for storage, I'm not sure what's happening. I know some of the universities are going at themselves and running up some stuff within Azure or Microsoft land because they have the licensing, the access to the licensing for that. But yeah, storage is a killer. That's a killer app for some federations. And the big storage some of the researchers need is just insane. But making that cheap.
There are two services that are picking up. One is EduVPN, and another one is actually File Sender. Is picking up. File Sender become preferable way to share file because some university administrator, even they don't allow to share like a file from a Google Drive or OneDrive to somebody from outside the organization. So in this case, is using File Sender is a better way to share the file and so on. And then about like cloud storage or something backup, because the thing is like this, the university already paid a lot for like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, for example. Then just make use of that, make use of the yeah, exactly, because it's a lot of investment and so on. So that's why I think like a cloud service is not longer like killer apps anymore. But EduVPN, yes, because they need secure access in the open Wi-Fi. If the Eduroam or Open Roaming is not available, and also for the File Sender and so on. That's these two services are picking up in Malaysia at the moment.
So you're saying that buying physical storage is costlier than hosting in AWS or OpenShift?
Yeah, because they already paid the licensing for like 365 licenses.
So what do your universities use, or do they sign up to Microsoft or Google, or do you know what level of licensing they have? So what tier? There's different tiers will get you different levels of access to stuff.
I don't know the levels, but I know the subscription covers the mainly 1 terabyte to 5 terabyte of storage and all the Microsoft services, mainly the Microsoft Office softwares in the plans.
Yep. So the Microsoft universities in Australia are sort of starting to work together and setting up business-to-business relationships between their Azures, so that a researcher at this university who's on Azure can store stuff in another university's storage and share stuff between themselves across that sort of Microsoft platform. So that might be something you want to investigate and make that something that you become the experts in, and how your universities could talk to you about how to set that up and partner with you in doing that stuff. So get a relationship with Microsoft going and see how to do it. I can probably get you in touch with someone in Australia who's working on that stuff at the moment. It gives you a lot of benefits because you get multi-factor authentication being enabled, all that sort of Microsoft-y stuff. It's not true federation, but at least it's a foot in the door, and at least you're being part of the solution, or helping them to understand what the solution is that they can go for.
That's all the university has Office 365. No.
Yeah, those are going to be the hard ones who don't do Office 365 or aren't doing the Microsoft stuff.
Because this morning I can share connecting one polytechnic in community colleges in 1 month. So it involved behind them. Maybe I will send the detail Wednesday updates.
Or we could use it as part of an idea for one of our unconference discussions.
In your case, all users are in single tenant or
No.
separate tenant?
Separate. Yeah, because the reason is like the Ministry of Higher Education, they already paid the license for all the universities, so they can have their own. So since they paid and so it's there, just use it.
Yep. And if you get them talking business to business
Yeah.
across the thing that gives them the access they potentially need.
And it's not the secret anymore that it's too big to fail. Not subscribing Microsoft offices. So even if they have to cut minister salary, they will do it. The license is a big fail. So.
Yep. So that's a potential topic for Wednesday afternoon. We might delve into that a bit more deeper. Okay. Communications, engaging with your customers. So we'll have a discussion on strategic, discuss the strategies to enable or engage with your federation customers. Focus on customers that provide identities to start with, that want to connect their services provided by your federation. Generally be your higher education and research sector, and generally they'll not understand the concepts of federation. So we find that when we start up a new federation or we talk to a new customer, they have no idea what we're trying to do or how we're trying to do it. Once they get that idea, once you see the light bulb come on, it's magic. They just understand and they'll roll forward pretty quickly. But getting that light bulb to come on in their heads can be a task in itself. Let's see. They're also, as we just said, looking for that killer app. So every federation will have its own different killer app. You're looking for storage and backup and so forth. Other federations were looking for Zoom and chat types things during the pandemic. In Australia, our killer app was really research services and access to providing services for our research community. Your libraries will also want access to various stuff that's in Federation and EduGain. A lot of the publishers that live out there. I think, Raj, your federation is pretty much built on giving access to publisher services.
Yeah.
Yep. So every federation has its own focus. And initially it will be difficult. Sorry?
No, but they don't allow federated.
Yes, they do. We have them in federation in Europe.
Yes,
They are how could you manage
All of them. There is.
They are
it's in,
there is more support. Now they have acquired.
yeah, we've got tenant in Australia's federation as well. So. Yeah, you've been targeted, Raj. Initially, it's difficult, but as your federation grows, momentum will bring favourable outcomes. So that's all good. Oops. This is. So, what journey will you take to grow your federation? Now, I'm just going to go through the journeys that IAF has gone through to get to where we are. But before we do that, some of the factors that may affect how your federation can grow. It's a number of identity providers, number of services, and that's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. You need services to attract identities. You need identities to attract service providers to your federation. Edugain helps solve that by providing a truckload of services. So that helps there. The protocols you offer, do you offer just SAML, or do you look at offering OpenID Connect just through a proxy, or JSON Web Tokens, or some other protocols to allow services to connect? Your utilization, how do you actually show your utilization? How do you report on that? And knowing what your utilization is will help affect the growth of your federation. We in the AF have been really slack at understanding the utilization of the AF. And it was amazing. I've been hassling our AF to actually capture good reporting stats from our IDPs forever. And we finally decided to turn that on and actually capture using FTIX all the logs. And when the first report came out, you should have seen all the excitement plus around the room. That's happening. Didn't know that was happening. That's happening. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Everyone just got super excited. I got, come on, fellas, I've been saying this forever. Get on board. And they jumped on board real quick. Funding may be an issue. Getting the right staffing. And as Raj said, getting good staff at the right price, not the cheap ones, but the good ones, and keeping them engaged. We've found that staff who join the AF as developers love working for us because it's so novel. It's different from working in your normal web development shops. So they're happy to take not as much pay to have the experience of working in a highly motivated team. The research outcomes may be an influence for some federations, some not. And advanced features may be an influencer. So do you have advanced features in your federation or not? We're starting to develop some more of our advanced features, as I said, through our trust and identity projects. Go forward. Yep. So 3 models to run your federation. Run by one or more of the member organizations. So I think Sifland started that way with one of your universities running your federation. Federasi similarly is one of your universities is currently running your federation. And the AF similarly, one of the universities started up our federation. In those cases, some of those turned into standalone organizations. The AF, Sifland is standalone. You're a government thing, aren't you? Yep. So that's one option to go down, standalone organization, much more autonomy. You can do what you like. There's really no restrictions. You're not having to compete with funding from the NREN. But the NREN option is the other way to go, to be part of the national NREN and provide a suite of services to your members, where they can pick up various tools. They join the network, they get EduRoam, they get Federation, they get all the other stuff that the NREN can provide. Each model has its place in time. Some federations change their operating model as they mature or seek additional support. So the AF has gone from type 1 to type 2. and Tirakiri, which is the Federation for New Zealand. It's actually gone from type 1 to type 2, I think, and then is now part of RIAN. So they've joined their NREN because they just didn't have enough resources to do it by themselves. So they've merged with RIAN. So the AF journey, 2006 to 2009, we had a precursor federation called MAMS, the Meta Access Management System, and it was a project that built a pilot federation, and it was funded and operated by Macquarie University from some government funding. They used version 1 of Shibboleth, which is long dead. They had a very prescriptive membership rules. I think it was about 40 pages of membership rules that you had to comply with, which was very difficult for anyone to comply with. They had very few services and very few IDPs, but their focus was around supporting Australian research. So the focus for Australia is always around supporting research. Libraries, students, others, they're secondary. We'll still support them, but in a secondary sort of fashion. They planned to become the Australian Access Federation, but the funding dried up, and then we came along. 2009, a new project funded by members moved from MAMS to the AF pilot project, which I ran out of my university, which was QUT at the time. We migrated and upgraded all of the MAMS members, IDPs and services across. We used new simpler technology stack based on Switch Federation, and that's where Jaeger came from. Jaeger is basically the Switch Federation identity management tool or Research Federation registry. So we started there. We simplified the rules, be non-prescriptive, made it easier for Federation members to join. So instead of taking a whole year for a member to join because they had to go through all the rules in detail, they were joining in a couple of weeks once they'd signed off on the rules. We developed our funding model, which was subscription-based because we were going to become a standalone company eventually. Actually, we weren't sure. We were either going to become a company ourselves or join AARNet. And we weren't really sure which way we were going to go. And we demonstrated the value of our federation at conferences. We obtained some seed funding to move from the pilot to the production federation. So we had a guy on the inside of the government, sort of. He worked in Canberra. He had a lot of influence down there, and he was able to influence the government to put their hand down the back of the couch and pull out some money for us and say, here, keep going with this stuff. We think it's going in the right direction, and we went forward. From 2011 and 12, we started growing the federation with the seed funding from the government to help kickstart us. Joining at that point was free for everybody. You're sort of trying to get them in, this, what do they call it, bait and switch type tactic. Here's a free federation for you. It's free for the next 2 years, but then you have to start paying for it. That worked quite well. We did invoice everybody. We invoiced them for $0 for the first 2 years. But we also indicated that the invoice would be X, and so reduced X down to $0 for them. So I had a feeling for what it was going to cost them to join. We ran lots of training. I was all over Australia running training events to help deployments of IDPs, similar to what you have been doing in Sri Lanka, running IDP deployments, workshops and so forth. Very tedious, very hard work, but I'm glad we've stopped doing that. We've got a hosted solution. We ran our roadshows, so we went to the management people at each of the universities, talked to them about what the federation was about one-on-one. Some of them got a bit annoyed with us because they were saying, oh, this is another MAMS federation, our predecessor who didn't go anywhere. How are you going to make sure you're sustainable and keep going and make it a value thing? And one of the universities, I think the University of Sydney, I think 3 of us turned up and they had 20 in the room. Had pro vice chancellors, they had heads of research, they had all sorts of people there. And they just hammered us for how we're going to make it work. But we survived, we got through. They were the last ones to join the federation, by the way. But once they saw everybody else had joined, they finally had to come on board. It was one of those, the crowd talked and the crowd moved everybody forward. And you'll find there'll be a number of those universities that are slow to join. can do it themselves, a bit proud, whatever it is, but eventually they'll join the federation once you have a big enough a cohort of other members, and they start to see the benefits those those members are starting to get: research collaborations, improved funding opportunities, etc. Our staff members started to grow. We started with just me running the federation. I had one developer come on board after a while. Then we got another manager. I didn't want to be the CIO or CEO or whatever, it just didn't interest me at all. So I stayed where I was. We got Heath in as the CEO. And we got developers, communications people, and I started doing support and a bit of less development stuff because I was getting too old to write code anymore. It's too hard. And we started meeting with other federations and learning. So we started to go to TNC conferences. We started to come to these events. We started to go to the REFEDS meetings and see how other federations are doing their stuff. So there's a lot of learning for us to understand what the federation's about. And this is what you guys are here doing today. This is the learning stage, understanding what a federation is, how to grow it, how to develop it. 13 to 16, we continue to grow. Started regularly attending national and international conferences, more and more services. We put up our first proxy, which was a simple JSON Web Token proxy. To actually add a service that way required about 20 lines of code in Python or Java or something else, and you were connected to the federation. Very simple connection option. In fact, we have over 180 services, I think, sitting behind that proxy at the moment. Which is good. Lights went down. All of our universities and our peak researchers were participating by this stage. We had our sustainable operations achieved, but not much scope to expand the service. So we just had enough money to keep the lights on, to keep us moving forward. And that put us in a bit of technical debt. The stuff we had developed ourselves wasn't moving forward because we hadn't got any new staff to keep the older stuff updated. We're building new stuff. The old stuff just kept on getting older and older and sadder and sadder. We had more staff join, more requirements from our subscribers, and universities starting to mature their enterprise identity systems. So at this time, universities are starting to put in things like Azure, Okta, Ping Federate, a whole raft of on-premise IDPs for running their on-prem stuff, which was fine. We just had our shibboleth IDP sitting off to the side for most of this. 2017 to today, we continue to grow and mature. We're providing leadership in the global federation space. So as Brooke mentioned this morning, I'm chairing the Engagining steering group. Another one of my colleagues, John Sculler, is on the REFEDS board, or REFEDS something or other. We participate in various working groups globally. So we're trying to make an influence globally so that the direction of federations is the same as our direction. So we're trying to align those things. We're always adding new services. So we've now got an OIDC connector. We've got our Rapid IDP, which is a hosted IDP solution. So that means we're running the IDPs on behalf of universities, which makes life a whole lot easier. And we've got our verification services, Verifid, which we talked about earlier. And we're developing advanced options based on the ARC blueprint architecture. We're investigating the REFEDS MFA and assurance frameworks, and that's my roadshow type stuff to inform universities on how to do that and get their IDPs up to speed with those assurance frameworks. And we're still very focused on supporting e-research in Australia. We have poked around, tried having a look at what the librarians are doing, and that's a bit of a mess. So I just stepped away really quickly from that one. They're happy using Open Athens fairly much for their access to research or to publishers and so forth. Not sure how far that's going to go. Beyond 2023, we'll continue to grow and mature. We'll be operating as an NCRIS trust and identity capability. So we've actually got that tick of approval from the government that we're big enough and we're ugly enough that we're actually a capability that is required by the government to help run our research capabilities. And we had to talk to and work with all of our capabilities to get them to influence the government to get us over the line on that one. So we're now a member of the club, which is great. We've now got access to that huge pool of funding that comes out every 3 to 5 years. We're growing and expanding our validation services, federation options for libraries, meeting their needs when accessing publishers, and much, much more. So we just continue building and building. So that's the AF story. I assume you'd have a different story, pal, because you're a government-funded organization.
We're not government funded, but we are government.
All right.
So our homework, we are all than to begin what we were 8 university students together, but then we went into that. We are paid by the fee that every university must pay to their grant. So we are government funded indirectly. And that has helped us. But our way of going forward has mainly been supporting you. You are doing research as your main.
Yep.
Our main thing has been students. And supporting research as a really important part of that also, but this to get everyone in is students and teachers. So that was our way forward. And we have built our policy was very small from the beginning and going to be fairly big, but not 40 pages.
Yeah.
So we have done the other way around, from a very open to a more closed.
Right. Cool. You want to speak about your story? No. Okay. Malaysia has their story, which is we'll continue on.
I just wanted to ask a question in this journey of yours. So I haven't seen any SP from the I mean, not is in your slides.
Right.
Do you have any services to attract the universities? Have you implemented any services to attract the universities to join your federation?
So we've got over 350 services in our federation across 3 protocols. So we've got Rapid Connect, which is using JSON Web Tokens to connect services. That's about 180 of our services. A lot of those are research services because they're very simple to set up. We've got a chunk of SAML services, and when we first started, we offered funding, a small grant. I think it was $50,000 to help a service provider configure itself to join the federation. We had about 5 or 6 of those grants just to kickstart us. And of that, I think we have about 200 plus services that are SAML-based services. Again, a lot of those are research-based services. And then our OpenID Connect, which is a newer thing to allow a different protocol and different developers to connect their services in. So we're very keen to have services, but we haven't really been pushing to get the services. They've just come to us by default because the researchers said, well, now you've run it, now you've set it up, make it work with AF, otherwise we won't use it. So we've gone that way, and that's been effective for us. We should do more for our researchers, our service providers, but the difficulty with service providers is they're all very different. They're all very bespoke. And one will run Shibboleth, one will run some other piece of software. Some will be using software as a service or cloud services. So having enough people with the knowledge to be able to support all that stuff, you need a team of 10 or more. And it's just me and Dahlia and Milroy. So there's 3 of us at the moment trying to support. So we've let them do their own thing. We help them when they need help. But we let them work out the stuff themselves. We do have some knowledge-based articles about how to connect. And we will have a discussion with them, showing them the different options to connect. But once we've had that discussion, they'll generally go away, give it to the developers, and the developers will come back, excuse me, with something that can connect to the federation. We're still keen to get more universities to connect their services. then it's a hard task because they, again, still don't understand the benefits of it. They're quite happy to run a service, let their local users access it using their local credentials, and then provide a separate account or a separate username or password for their visitors. See that way too often.
I can say that we have around 600 services, but we promote that you can connect your own universal service to the federation, to your own use and to your organization.
Yep.
You can use our proposal stack to help you get your use into your application. You don't need to have other federation members need to log in. You can use the same infrastructure for your own local service.
So you're moving more towards single sign-ons, the goal for the university. But they're using the federation to get single sign-on because you've got that identity provider sitting in there. You add the metadata for the service provider, but only enable it for the students at that university, or the researchers or the staff or whatever.
That's also a way to
Same.
Yep.
So the yours is research review. We are more or less the same experience as enterprise application. So basically use federation to support the operation in the university, like library, internal apps, learning management system. So we, in terms of cross organization resource integration, the federation probably will be next step in our journey. So we pretty much at the moment what they see the opportunity part, which is good. I mean, it can solve our internal SS issues.
Yep.
At the same time, the bonus is we also able to use connect with resources like from the EduGames, that the free or the paid one, so on. So that's the current state. Yeah, pretty much the same.
Yep. Okay.
That's a great idea. Because as you can see, with a short team, you can't develop so much application level or service level support to attract more universities to come to our federation. That's a great idea, so that we can use.
That's the objective of this project. Actually, one of those is to build like tools, everything to help the person to get onboarded to your federation system as fast as possible, as easy as possible, without disrupting the existing operation. Because like in Malaysia, one of the worry from the IT administrator is that whether this would disturb the current setup. I mean, of course, there are some that well set up and they don't want to disrupt it with the coming of the generation. Of course, there's some that they think that they are already good enough, but actually they don't. It's very messy. That's the thing, regardless which one. So basically we try to not disruptive as possible. And from there, once they know the benefit, all the good thing about them, and then slowly integrating the adopting identification into their IT ecosystem. I always say to the university that don't look this as a 100-meter run. It's just like a marathon. So you have done stages. So the first stage, get your IDP ready, connect with your directory service. Next, you try to clean up or tidy up your directory service with the correct, accurate information. And then the next step is do the integration with the application. So with this, then you have very smooth journey. Yeah, it may take 6 months. I think the first one, we need about 1 year, right? But after that, they realize, hey, now that's easy. We can connect like 20 internal apps to access all within 1 day. Even.
Yep.
Maybe if I may add to that, we find that in Malaysia, the directory service and even the database some are really messy. And because we comply with the international standard, we have to tell them, what you are doing is actually wrong. There's some is horribly wrong. Even phone numbers is an IC number, and there's sort of all sorts of things happening. But at least in our case, at least in Malaysia's case, some universities are doing their database wrongly. So I'm not sure, maybe, yeah, okay, if that is the same, then it's a common thing. So you have to make sure that everything all runs smoothly and is always on one university to another university to another university. So it is easier, like we said, UNIZA, which is one of the university, that you have nothing. If we have nothing, then you start from zero, then it will be so much easier for us to actually put everything correctly.
Greenfield sites are much easier.
Yeah, but I always have one which is actually so messy. And then Mahan said, the best thing is you have a Thanos, we just click and then start new.
The Infinity Stone.
The Infinity Stone. So it's really just to share with you the challenges. If you know, it's so messy. One of these is so messy that every time there is a new thing, they are just subscribing to OpenAppens and they created another database, a copy. So I don't know, maybe.
So are you big enough in Malaysia yet to be able to influence that behavior and stop people doing it?
Not yet, but we are working towards that, and we are hopeful that what we say to them, you know, have a Thanos do that, they will follow, because they realize that they are running deeper of a wrong thing.
At this point, we had enough. So
Yeah.
do you have any solution?
Well, that's where I said you need to become the technical experts in this space to be able to influence and drive the conversation
It's a
forward.
long process, like
Yeah.
it's a marathon. It's so difficult. Like just to share, you know, yeah.
Or an existing application, because the universities barely develop new applications. Some of the universities which are advanced in science and technology stuff, they develop their new applications maybe 2 or 3 a year. But most of them they have developed from a third-party vendors.
Yeah.
Develop the software, they have a registration system and something like this, and then a single account or replacing the database like we're saying. But for the existing applications that they have already started out, have you developed any solutions so that the existing data of the user will be connected to that?
Our strategy is, of course, we talk to the developer. I think we know programming. So sometimes they thought that it's so complicated to link. So it's not. You don't have to do a major changes. It's very tiny part in your only the other part. Even all the heavy lifting is handled by a simple simple. You don't even need to know about how to exchanging this XML information. That's what the application receive. It's just attributes.
Yep.
That's it. So
And if you can get a matching attribute from the old system to the new system, it's fairly easy.
So what we did last time, so we had like one day like a hackathon session. We felt like, okay, this is how to make with one application. That's what it works. So that the application then they just replicate. So one application, one day one application. Then now about 40, even because it's become too much. Okay, we have to set up your internal federation for you guys. This is too many now.
So each one of them is so unique, you know.
It- it-
But it's very much possible to just to adapt the new information with the existing. You can actually, in my case, we use the proxy. We use the Nginx proxy. So basically, what happens is in front we have this SQLite login, and then we just bring the sessions through that proxy, and then that's it. So the existing applications, basically nothing changed. Nothing changed. So what happened is just like, you know, in programming, you bring just need to make sure that the session is there, right? So that sessions, we brought that sessions from the SQLite proxy and then to the applications. So we have kind of like a legacy applications running in the university, and in front we just put a proxy and SQLite. That's
But the comment from the internal developer, so that's why goes. But of course, your team needs to have
Sorry.
programmer that knows how to civilize an application so that it's easier to explain
University.
Yes. Yeah.
So the other thought I've had is to don't do it yourself, or don't have your university folk do it themselves, but go out to your community and say, has anyone done this integration? And if so, can you help these guys because they're about to do exactly the same work? They don't want to have to go through exactly the same learning curves that you've gone through. Or go out to the global community through the Refeds email lists or Slack or whatever. Has anyone globally done this? And I'm sure somebody will stand up and say,
They're very much happy.
I've done that.
Very open. Even some application like off the shelf, it already has SAML plugin.
A lot of off the shelf stuff only talks to one IDP, which is a pain in the backside too. We're working on that one.
There will always be one.
There's many.
That is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is that, for example, you take one LMS from Bucket, Canvas.
Wow.
Yeah, that one cannot read federation metadata, but we can get metadata out and publish it so that it doesn't need to do the stuff in their end.
Yep.
So it's simplifying for the homologizations, but you need to register manually in Canvas. That's standard for commercial applications. But it works really well for the business. They get the wing of it.
Yep. Okay, it's now 12:30, we're just about, so that's lunchtime, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, what is the last time?
I hope so. Suppose,
I'm so excited of having to.
After the 4 plates of breakfast, yes.
I think it's a very nice sector, very nice. All the pains, like I said, Farhan said 2013 was the time when we started the circular. So in our case,
Born in a small cubicle.
yeah, born in a small cubicle. In 2014, this is our journey a little bit. We started to tell the Ministry of Higher Education in Malaysia to say, you have to set this up nationally. You have to set it up nationally. Until 2018, we are so fed up with telling them because they keep changing the people up there. We said, that's it. We're going to do it ourselves. So that's why we actually took it out. And then we built Sipulan separately away from the government. So that's how it started, and it becomes something more or less like it's a national service, but being operated by a commercial company. Yeah, for us, it's so much easier that way, but it will be now an uphill battle for us to not being able to tell the government, all the universities must come in. So we have to do it one after another, after another, after another, after another. And we are so lucky to have friendly university as well as that 140 polytechnic and community college. So slowly, the wind has started to actually blow towards the rest of them, and they may well wish to see more to come.
So you financially sustainable.
Sorry?
Almost there.
Are you?
Well, in business, you have to have a loss leader. So you lose some with a minimal thing, and then you may be able in the hope that gaining a little bit more. But the key here is we have 3 staff, Farhan and the 2 others, and then
They are permanent staff.
yeah, permanent staff. But we go on the lean. This is the thing, and I don't want to this is the way we do. We even purchase our server, 5 servers from eBay. We co-located it in one of the cloud service providers, co-located data center, and then we run our own cloud there. But we do run on something which is actually so automated, and so that's why we have to keep doing it for operational costs. So we keep very low. We even have a virtual office, which we pay in Malaysian ringgit about 300. So how much is that? More. 3,000. Yeah. No, that is the co-location. The office is about 300 ringgit per.
Universities or colleges that become your member, they pay the membership.
Yeah, they pay, yes, membership charge. And we, yeah,
It's paid by the Department of Polytechnic and College of Higher Education. Yeah, Ministry of Education. So
Recurrent charge,
yearly.
right?
Yeah,
they have
yearly
a
charge.
subscription.
Yearly charge, yeah, subscription, yearly charge, and then we charge it. Well, we talk about open Athens and everything, so we go at the jugular and quote unquote, they are our competitor. But we have a way of ensuring that we keep our price low, which is much more competitive. And then we even have a situation where the university has already purchased the subscription from Open Athens, and then when we actually confronted them, and they smile and look at each other, knowing that actually they have done something which is actually, no, they don't listen to us first. And then the moment they do that, and then we reveal our price, and they are looking at each other and saying that maybe they are paying a lot. They're paying. So that there's all various ways of doing it, and each one is unique. Some are lucky enough, like Raja, to have government supporting it. So it all depends. It all depends. So it's really painful to actually convince the universities, to convince the government that this is something which is excellent, and this is where the future.
Which I think need to do it once for each university.
Yeah.
Once they're in, they're in. They don't leave.
We can push in case if you are not getting proper funding support from your government. We can do some kind of cross funding.
Yeah.
You can gain from them. Like every country will have their different R&D.
Yeah.
They need to buy some resources, they're going to spend some amount of from their government, right? You say that by joining this federation, by running this federation, we can get the remote campus. That's what we push into.
So it's a lot of use cases.
Yes.
So you need a lot of use cases, but in each country is different in the way of pushing.
Even now there is a one nation, one subscription scheme came on.
We are getting up towards that.
Yeah, one nation, one subscription, like earlier, we do operate for only Ministry of Education. Now, all other ministry they should not directly subscribe any of the resources. Even Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Department of Science and Technology, ICT, none of the ministry should not have direct subscription with any publisher.
You can do that because
That's already we are in the
Prime Minister Modi did that, right?
Yeah, we have come.
But we do not have the Prime Minister Modi in Malaysia, but let's say it's
Our problem is the Prime Minister thinking.
No, don't worry about it, because this is unique in Malaysia. So we have three
So
Prime
you
Ministers.
will have government agency become your federation member.
Yeah, our government's not
Yes,
federation.
it's now combined.
Ah,
It's now combined. You don't want to push the institution.
okay.
You don't want to push institution to join membership.
So your government also have the similar type of single sign-on in all the government services?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
So you don't have, okay, for example, there's a case like the one you work, they use Azure AD for the SSO. But the library is using Sipulan to access the access. So what we did, we create a proxy thing together. So means that it becomes transparent to the end users, so they don't have to change whatever investment they have made.
Okay, which time?
Yes.
A lot of things we can